Thomas Bennett, a young American soldier, found unexpected solace in the letters he wrote to Eleanor, a nurse he had briefly met before leaving for the front. Amid the chaos and uncertainty of war, these letters became a beacon of hope, a way to keep alive the memory of a budding love. Thomas clung to every written word, as if through them he could once again feel the warmth of Eleanor's hand and the sparkle in her eyes. In the trenches, between battles, Thomas always found a moment to write. He described the horrors he faced but also shared his hopes and dreams for the future. "My dear Eleanor," he began, "the days here are long and heavy, but the thought of you waiting for me at home is what keeps me strong. However, the reality that each letter returned unanswered began to weigh on his heart. With each returned letter, marked with the stamp of not found or returned to sender, Thomas felt a pang of despair. He wondered if Eleanor had moved away or if, somehow, his letters had never reached her. "Eleanor, I hope you are well. I received another returned letter today. Perhaps you never read them, but that doesn't stop me from writing." The returned letters became a painful symbol of unrequited love or, worse, a love never received. As the months passed, Thomas's words in the letters became more introspective and filled with doubt. He questioned whether the war had separated them forever or if there had never been a chance for them. "Sometimes, I think fate played a cruel game, giving us just a glimpse of what could have been." Each returned letter was a blow, but also a reason to keep writing, as if maintaining this one-way connection was a way to stay sane. Thomas never stopped writing to Eleanor, even as the returned letters began to pile up in his chest. To him, these letters were more than mere words. They were pieces of his soul, sent in the hope that somehow they would find their way to her. "Eleanor, even if you never read this, I want you to know that thinking of you gives me the strength to face each day here." Eleanor, on the other hand, was also fighting her own battles. The work as a nurse was exhausting, and she was constantly surrounded by suffering. Memories of Thomas came to her mind on lonely nights, but she never received a single letter, unaware that he was trying to communicate from a distant place. The letters continued to return, like ghosts of a love that could have been. Thomas's last letter, written with all the sincerity of his heart, also came back. "Eleanor, if these words ever reach you, I want you to know that you were a light in the darkness for me. Even if you never received my letters, I will always keep you in my heart." And with that, he ended his final attempt at contact. With the end of the war, Thomas Bennett returned home, carrying the weight of memories he would never fully share. The returned letters, carefully kept in a chest, were the last tangible link to a love that never blossomed. Back in civilian life, he tried to find Eleanor but could no longer locate her at the hospital. No one had information about her or they didn't want to speak. Thomas moved on, even though the past haunted him silently. Shortly after his return, Thomas met Margaret, a vibrant and charming young woman. She was everything he needed at that moment, a warm and stable presence. Gradually, Thomas found in Margaret a new reason to smile and believe in a happy future. The two married in a small ceremony, surrounded by friends and family. However, Thomas never mentioned the letters or Eleanor to Margaret. It was a secret he kept deep in his heart, an unfinished chapter of his life. Margaret was a devoted companion, and together they built a peaceful life. Thomas devoted himself to work and family, but from time to time, he found himself thinking about the stored letters. One night, while putting away some belongings, Thomas found the old chest. He opened it and skimmed through some of the letters, feeling a mix of melancholy and longing. "If only things had been different," he murmured to himself before closing the chest and locking it again. The letters remained stored, a silent secret amidst the happiness he found with Margaret. Thomas never stopped loving his wife, but a part of his heart would always belong to Eleanor. He kept the letters as a reminder of a time and a person who had profoundly marked his life. However, he never had the courage to get rid of them, as if doing so would erase a part of himself. Thomas and Margaret's marriage was marked by moments of joy and challenges. Like any other, they had children and eventually grandchildren. Life followed its natural course, with Thomas dedicating himself to the family he built. However, the chest with the letters remained an unresolved enigma, a secret he carried with him. It was a remnant of a past that, try as he might, he could never completely forget. Margaret noticed, on rare occasions, a distant look on Thomas's face, as if he were somewhere else, in another time. But she never asked about it. There was a silent understanding between them, a mutual respect for the secrets and silences they each carried. Thomas was a good husband, and that was enough for her. Her husband's past, though mysterious, did not threaten the present they shared. And so the years passed. Thomas grew old, and the chest with the letters remained locked, untouched. He wondered what would have happened if Eleanor had received his letters. But these questions were never spoken aloud. They were a constant whisper, a background music he learned to ignore. Until the end of his days, Thomas kept the letters as a symbol of what could have been and what actually was. After Thomas's death, the family gathered to organize his belongings. The Bennett house was full of memories, with every corner revealing a story from the past. Sarah Bennett, Thomas's granddaughter, was tasked with taking care of her grandfather's office, a place that had always seemed mysterious to her. There, among old books and personal items, she found the old wooden chest. Curious, she decided to open it and explore its contents. As she lifted the lid, Sarah came across a collection of letters yellowed with age. Each carefully preserved envelope bore the name Eleanor, written in her grandfather's meticulous handwriting. Intrigued, Sarah began to read the letters. She soon realized that she was facing a story of unrequited love, or perhaps a love that was never fulfilled, between her grandfather and a woman unknown to her. The words in the letters revealed a side of Thomas she had never known. As she read, Sarah felt a mix of emotions. There was sadness in her grandfather's words, a deep melancholy that contrasted with the calm figure he had always been to her. She had never known about these letters, this secret love he had carried for so long. Who was Eleanor? Sarah wondered. Curiosity took hold, and she found herself determined to learn more about this mysterious woman who meant so much to Thomas. With the letters in hand, Sarah began her investigation. She talked to her parents, but no one seemed to know about Eleanor. It seemed that Thomas had kept this secret to himself. Each letter she read revealed a little more about her grandfather's feelings, and she couldn't help but feel connected to the story. It was as if, somehow, she was destined to discover what really happened between Thomas and Eleanor. While organizing the rest of Thomas's belongings, Sarah found more clues. There was an old photograph, a portrait of a young woman she assumed was Eleanor. There was also a small jewelry box containing a simple and elegant engagement ring. Sarah was both amazed and confused. Had Thomas planned to propose to Eleanor? And why had he never mentioned this to anyone? Determined to unravel the mystery, Sarah decided to dig deeper. She started searching through old records, trying to find any mention of Eleanor. The task wouldn't be easy, but Sarah felt she owed it to her grandfather. She wanted to understand who this woman was and why the letters never reached their destination. Perhaps there were answers that could bring peace to Thomas's legacy. As she progressed in her investigation, Sarah couldn't help but feel more connected to her grandfather. It was as if, through these letters, she was getting to know a side of him she had never imagined existed. A man in love, but also marked by silent pain. Each new discovery was a piece of the puzzle, revealing a love story that transcended time. At the end of the day, Sarah closed the chest but kept the letters with her. She knew that this was just the tip of the iceberg. There was much more to be discovered, and she was determined to follow every clue to the end. The mystery of Eleanor was not just a historical curiosity. It was a family story that needed to be told, and Sarah was willing to tell that story no matter the cost. Determination was what drove Sarah as she began her quest for the truth about Eleanor. Her grandfather's letters had awakened an insatiable curiosity, a need to understand the past that seemed inextricably linked to the present. As an investigative journalist, Sarah had the skills and resources to follow the clues. With the letters in hand, she began to piece together the puzzle. The first step of the investigation led Sarah to the city's archives. She sifted through old records, looking for any mention of the name Eleanor. The process was meticulous and tiring, but Sarah remained steadfast. "There has to be something here," she muttered to herself as she flipped through yellow documents. She discovered that Eleanor had been a nurse during the war, which confirmed the story in the letters. However, there was no mention of where she might be now. "Where are you, Eleanor?" she whispered, feeling her anxiety grow. Sarah also turned to the local library, where she found old newspapers and clippings. In a time-forgotten article, she found a brief mention of a nurse named Eleanor who had worked at a field hospital. "This is a good start," she told herself, quickly jotting down the information. The article was short but provided valuable details about the time she had served. This could be an important clue, she thought, already considering her next steps. However, the investigation encountered its obstacles. Many records were incomplete or had been destroyed over time. Sarah realized that Eleanor's story was buried in more secrets than she had imagined. Even so, she didn't let herself be discouraged. "I'm not giving up now," she declared, determined to press on. Every new discovery, no matter how small, was a step forward. "I need to know more," she repeated to herself as she looked at a photo of her younger grandfather smiling. During her search, Sarah faced moments of frustration and uncertainty. At every dead end, she wondered if she was truly prepared to discover what was hidden. "What if it's something no one wants me to know?" she questioned aloud as she gazed at the chest with the letters. But curiosity and the desire to understand her grandfather's legacy drove her. "These letters can't be the end of the story," she told herself with a heavy sigh. The letters weren't just a relic of feelings. They represented a love story and lives that could have been different. As she delved deeper into her investigation, Sarah began to realize that the mystery was more complex than just lost letters. There was something else going on, something that had prevented these letters from crossing their paths. Sarah felt she was about to uncover a larger plot involving secrets that spanned generations. To move forward, Sarah decided to contact former colleagues and acquaintances of Eleanor. Most were reluctant to speak, while others had already passed away. In one phone call, an elderly woman answered with a frail voice. "Yes, I remember Eleanor. She was a good friend." The difficulty in obtaining information only deepened the mystery. "Why doesn't anyone want to talk about her?" Sarah questioned, but the answer was about to emerge. Sarah finally found a former colleague of Eleanor, Mrs. Anderson, an elderly woman with tired eyes but a sharp mind. "Eleanor? Of course, I remember her," the woman began, adjusting her glasses. "She always talked about a soldier, someone named Thomas." Sarah was surprised and asked, "Did she mention anything about this Thomas?" Mrs. Anderson paused, trying to remember better. "She spoke of him a lot, seemed in love even after the war. She said he was someone special." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine upon hearing this. So she really cared about him, she thought aloud. Mrs. Anderson smiled sadly. "Yes, but she never told much beyond that. Just that he was a soldier who meant a lot to her." This revelation gave Sarah the certainty that there was much more to the story of Eleanor and Thomas. "I need to find out what happened to them," she murmured, feeling the adrenaline rush through her veins. Determined to uncover the truth, she prepared for the next stage of the investigation, aware that she might not like what she found. "But the truth needs to be discovered," she murmured with a determined look. The search for the truth was stronger. Sarah knew she had to continue, both for her grandfather and for Eleanor. She was about to unearth secrets that could change everything she knew about her family. With the information gathered, Sarah continued her investigation, delving deeper into Eleanor's story. The fragments of conversations and old documents led her to a crucial discovery. Eleanor also had feelings for Thomas. This revelation came as a shock, as Sarah had believed that her grandfather was the only one harboring such emotions. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, but there was still much to uncover. The confirmation came when Sarah managed to locate Eleanor's old house, now inhabited by a new family. The new residents, aware of the historical significance of the place, allowed Sarah to explore the attic. There, in an old wooden box, Sarah found letters that Eleanor had written but never sent. Upon opening the first letter, Sarah read the words of a woman in love and full of hope. "My dear Thomas," the letter began. "There isn't a day that goes by without me thinking of you. Your letters are the light of my days." Sarah felt a lump in her throat as she realized the depth of Eleanor's feelings. As she continued to read, Sarah discovered that Eleanor's letters had been intercepted and returned, preventing communication between the two. In one of the letters, Eleanor wrote, "I received all your letters back without explanation. I don't understand why our words never reached us." The frustration and sadness in Eleanor's words were palpable. Sarah wondered who could have done this and why. Who would want to keep them apart? She thought as she leafed through the letters. In another letter, Eleanor expressed her pain at not being able to be with Thomas. "I feel so helpless," she wrote. "I wish I could hold you in my arms and tell you that everything will be okay. But I'm stuck here, with my letters that never reach you." Eleanor's anguish was clear. Sarah felt a wave of empathy for her and her grandfather, two lovers separated by circumstances beyond their control. The discovery of Eleanor's letters added a new layer to the story. It wasn't just Thomas's unrequited love. It was a mutual love story, thwarted by unknown forces. Sarah felt a mix of sadness and indignation. "They could have had a life together," she murmured, carefully holding one of the letters. It was a silent tragedy, lived through words that were never read by the recipient. Determined to find out who was behind the interception of the letters, Sarah continued her search. She found clues suggesting that Eleanor's family might have been involved. In one of the letters, Eleanor mentioned her family. "My parents don't understand what I feel for you. They think I'm being foolish to wait for someone who might never return." Sarah began to see a pattern, suspecting that Eleanor's family had something to do with the returned letters. For Sarah, the search for the truth had now become personal. She wanted justice for her grandfather and Eleanor, two hearts that were prevented from uniting. "I'll find out who did this," she promised herself with renewed determination. Each new discovery fueled her desire to see it through to the end, regardless of the consequences. As she prepared for the next step of the investigation, Sarah knew the journey was far from over. There were more questions than answers, but she was more determined than ever. The truth, no matter how painful, needed to be revealed. "No matter what I find, I'm going to tell this story," she said aloud, feeling the weight of the promise. Sarah was about to unearth secrets that would impact not only her family, but also the story of a love that never had the chance to bloom. Upon discovering the involvement of Eleanor's family in intercepting the letters, Sarah decided to confront the surviving descendants and relatives directly. She knew it would be a delicate task, but she was determined to understand what had really happened. With Eleanor's letters in hand, Sarah arranged a visit to the home of Eleanor's grandchildren, hopeful that she would find answers. At the meeting, she was greeted with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. The younger members of Eleanor's family seemed to know little about the past, but the eldest granddaughter, Claire, appeared cautious. "I don't understand why you're so interested in my grandmother's story," Claire said, crossing her arms. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "I'm just trying to understand what happened between Thomas and Eleanor. I found letters indicating that they had feelings for each other," she explained. Claire frowned but remained silent. As Sarah tried to explain her intentions, she noticed a palpable tension in the room. Claire finally broke the silence. Eleanor's family never approved of Thomas. He was just a soldier, and they expected more for her. Sarah saw a glimpse of truth in Claire's words. So they interfered? They returned the letters on purpose. Claire hesitated, but her silence was enough for Sarah to understand that there was more than just disapproval. "That's unacceptable," Sarah murmured, feeling her indignation grow. Trying to gather more information, Sarah asked about the whereabouts of Eleanor's old documents and belongings. Claire shook her head. "I don't know where they are, and honestly, I'd rather not get involved in this. It's the past, and some ghosts should stay buried." Sarah felt frustrated with the resistance but remained undeterred. "I just want the truth, for both of them," she insisted, looking into Claire's eyes. Eleanor's granddaughter sighed, looking tired. You don't understand what this could cause. Some things are better left buried. However, it wasn't just Claire who showed resistance. Other older family members were also reluctant to talk. One of Claire's uncles, upon hearing about the letters, simply said, "That's none of your business, young lady. Let the dead rest." Sarah felt the weight of his words and realized she was dealing with something deeper than just a story of forbidden love. There were secrets that Eleanor's family seemed determined to keep hidden. Sarah knew that continuing to push could cause conflicts, but she also felt that she couldn't simply abandon her quest. "I understand that this may be painful, but I'm not here to judge. I just want to understand," she said, trying to ease the tension. Claire finally relented a little. "I'll see what I can find, but don't expect much," she said in a tone that mixed resignation and caution. Sarah nodded, grateful for any help she could get. As she said her goodbyes, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that there was something dark behind all the resistance. "The truth always finds a way to come out," she told Claire, who only gave a sad smile before closing the door. Sarah left the house with more questions than answers, but with the certainty that she was on the right track. The truth about Thomas and Eleanor's love was still to be uncovered, and Sarah was more determined than ever to reveal all the hidden secrets. On her way back, Sarah reflected on what she had learned. The resistance from Eleanor's family only reinforced her conviction that there was something significant to be discovered. "No matter how hard it is, I won't stop," she promised herself, feeling the weight of responsibility. The interrupted love story needed to be told, and Sarah was determined to do justice to her grandfather's and Eleanor's legacy. After weeks of intense investigation and facing resistance from Eleanor's family, Sarah finally found a promising lead. A retired nurse who had worked with Eleanor at the field hospital told Sarah about a nursing home where Eleanor was living. With her heart racing and a mix of excitement and nervousness, Sarah decided to meet the woman who had so profoundly impacted her grandfather's life. Upon arriving at the luxurious nursing home, Sarah was led to an elegantly decorated sitting room. Eleanor, now an elderly woman with a serene demeanor and piercing eyes, sat in an armchair near the window, overlooking a well-kept garden. Sarah approached cautiously, feeling the weight of the moment. "Mrs. Eleanor?" she called gently. Eleanor looked up, surprised but with a welcoming expression. "Yes, that's me. And you must be the young investigator Claire mentioned." Sarah sat beside Eleanor, feeling a mixture of reverence and curiosity. "Yes, my name is Sarah Bennett. I'm the granddaughter of Thomas Bennett." Eleanor was silent for a moment, the name Thomas bringing a wave of memories. "Thomas Bennett," she repeated softly, as if savoring the name after so many years. "He wrote me so many letters," she said with a slight, sad smile. Sarah nodded, feeling a pang in her heart. "And you wrote to him too." "I found your letters," Sarah revealed, handing over the last letter Eleanor had written, never sent. Eleanor took the letter with trembling hands, carefully opening it. Her eyes scanned the words, and a solitary tear rolled down her cheek. "I never knew he received my letters," she murmured, her voice choked with emotion. Sarah, touched by Eleanor's vulnerability, explained, "They were returned. Someone intercepted Thomas's replies and your letters as well." Eleanor closed her eyes, trying to contain the pain she still felt. "I knew something was wrong. I never believed he had simply forgotten me." The conversation deepened as Eleanor revealed more about her feelings for Thomas. "He was so sweet, so full of life," she said, with a sparkle in her eyes. "I used to think about what our life together would have been like." Sarah listened intently, feeling a growing connection with Eleanor. It was as if they were unearthing a forgotten chapter of their lives. "My grandfather thought of you too. He kept all your letters, even the ones that were returned," Sarah said, offering some comfort. Eleanor sighed deeply, the weight of the years seeming to lift a little. "Sometimes life separates us in ways we'll never understand," she reflected. Sarah felt the depth of those words, knowing that her mission to uncover the truth was more than just an investigation. It was a way to honor a love that never had the chance to bloom. "He wrote one last letter to you," Sarah said, handing over the envelope she had found among her grandfather's belongings. Eleanor opened the envelope carefully, reading Thomas's words of love and hope. Tears streamed down Eleanor's face as she read. "He never lost hope," she said, her voice breaking. Sarah held Eleanor's hand, offering support. "You were the love of his life, even if he never had the chance to tell you that in person," Sarah said, feeling a profound connection with the woman before her. Eleanor nodded, wiping away the tears. "And he was mine," she replied with a melancholic smile. Before saying goodbye, Sarah promised Eleanor that she would tell their story, so the love between her and Thomas would never be forgotten. "You're not alone in this," Sarah assured. Eleanor, touched by Sarah's kindness and determination, responded with gratitude. "Thank you, my dear. You have brought peace to this old heart." With a final hug, Sarah said goodbye, leaving Eleanor with the memories of an eternal love. After the emotional meeting with Eleanor, Sarah began visiting her frequently. During one of these visits, she encountered Eleanor's grandson as she was leaving the nursing home. Tall, charismatic, and with a keen gaze, he seemed to carry a vibrant energy. "You must be Sarah Bennett," he said, extending his hand with a smile. "I'm David, Eleanor's grandson." Sarah shook David's hand, feeling a curious electricity in the air. "Yes, that's me. I just spoke with your grandmother," she replied, still processing the intensity of the encounter. David nodded, understanding. "She told me about you. It seems we have a lot in common, including our grandparents and their unresolved stories." There was something in David's eyes that suggested a deep understanding and perhaps a similar curiosity about the past. The conversation flowed naturally. David was charming, with an innate ability to make Sarah feel at ease. They discussed the story of Thomas and Eleanor, but also shared personal stories and life experiences. David revealed that he had always been interested in his grandmother's story but never got clear answers from his family. She always spoke fondly of a soldier she met during the war, but no one ever wanted to delve into the subject, he remarked with a hint of frustration. Sarah felt an immediate connection with David. It was as if they were both on a parallel journey, each seeking to understand their roots and the emotional legacy left by their grandparents. "I'm glad to finally find someone who shares this interest," Sarah said with a genuine smile. David nodded, seeming to share the same sentiment. "Maybe it's destiny bringing us together to complete this story," he joked, but with a note of sincerity. As they walked through the gardens of the nursing home, the conversation shifted to lighter and more personal topics. David talked about his work as a photographer, traveling the world and capturing unique moments. Sarah, in turn, shared her adventures as an investigative journalist. There was a naturalness in their interaction that was hard to ignore. "You're very brave, Sarah. Investigating and reviving the past requires a strength that many don't have," David praised, looking at her with admiration. The afternoon passed quickly, and before they knew it, it was getting dark. Sarah felt a mix of satisfaction and something else she couldn't quite define. David seemed reluctant to say goodbye. "I'd like to continue this conversation," he said, almost shyly. "Maybe over coffee or something?" Sarah smiled, feeling an unexpected excitement. "I'd love to," she replied, feeling warmth in her chest. It was a simple invitation, but it carried the promise of more meetings and possibilities. As they said their goodbyes, both felt that something special was beginning. "See you soon, Sarah," David said, with a smile that made her heart race. "See you soon, David," she replied, watching him walk away. There was a sense that this connection went beyond their grandparents, something that belonged to them alone. Sarah returned home with her mind full of thoughts and her heart light. The meeting with Eleanor had brought a sense of peace, but the meeting with David brought something more. A new hope, a possibility of love and understanding. "Maybe destiny is giving us a second chance," she thought, smiling to herself. The story of Thomas and Eleanor still had more chapters to be written, and perhaps Sarah and David were the continuation of that legacy. The meetings between Sarah and David became frequent after that first coffee. What began as a friendship built around a shared family history quickly evolved into something deeper. There was an undeniable chemistry between them, an attraction they both felt from the beginning, but which intensified with each conversation and moment together. Sarah found herself increasingly captivated by David, not just by his appearance, but by his sensitive soul and keen mind. During one of their meetings, while walking through a park, David confessed his feelings. "Sarah, since the moment we met, I felt something special. I think it's not just our grandparents' destiny we're discovering. It's ours too," he said, gently holding her hand. Sarah felt her heart race. "I feel the same way," she responded with a shy but sincere smile. There was a mutual understanding, a connection they couldn't ignore. The relationship blossomed naturally. They started meeting not just to discuss the past, but to create new memories. Dinners, outings, and long conversations about life became common. In one of those moments, while watching the sunset on the beach, David looked into Sarah's eyes and said, "I never thought an investigation into the past would bring me something so good in the present." Sarah chuckled softly, feeling a wave of happiness. "Neither did I. It seems our grandparents brought us together in an unexpected way." David's feelings for Sarah were clear and deep. He confided in his grandmother about his growing feelings. "Grandma, I think I'm in love with Sarah," he said during a visit. Eleanor, who had already suspected the connection between the two, smiled with an understanding look. "You're following your heart, David, and that's what matters," she replied, supporting her grandson on his journey of love. David felt a sense of relief and gratitude for Eleanor's support. Over time, Sarah and David realized their lives were becoming increasingly intertwined. David began spending more time at Sarah's house, and she at his apartment. There was a sense of belonging, as if they had finally found something that had always been missing. At a dinner at home, David, visibly nervous, said to Sarah, "I know it's early, but I want you to know that I'm thinking about a future with you." Sarah was moved. "I am too, David," she replied, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. Their relationship also brought new light to the story of Thomas and Eleanor. Sarah and David began working together to finalize the investigation and write an article that would tell their grandparents' love story. It was a way to honor the past and celebrate the present. "Our grandparents never had the chance to live the love they felt for each other," Sarah said as she reviewed the drafts. David agreed. "But we have that chance, and I'm not going to waste it." During a visit to Eleanor, Sarah and David shared their findings and plans for the article. Eleanor, with tears in her eyes, was moved to see the love between them. "You two are proof that true love finds a way, even when it seems impossible," she said, her voice soft but full of conviction. Sarah and David looked at each other, feeling the weight and beauty of those words. The love between Sarah and David grew each day, bringing with it a sense of completeness. They knew that fate had conspired to bring them together, and they were determined to make the most of every moment. As they planned their future, there was an unshakable certainty that they were on the right path. The story of Thomas and Eleanor, full of love and separation, had paved the way for a new beginning for Sarah and David, one they were ready to embrace with all their hearts. The relationship between Sarah and David blossomed each day, filling Eleanor's heart with joy and a sense of fulfillment. The elderly woman, who had spent much of her life reflecting on what could have been, now saw in her grandson and Sarah the realization of a love that transcended time. With the awareness of her advancing age and the knowledge that her time was running out, Eleanor made a decision that would surprise everyone. One morning, Eleanor asked to see her longtime lawyer, Mr. Hamilton. Sitting in her favorite armchair, with a serene expression, she calmly explained her decision. "I want to make a change to my will," she said firmly. The lawyer, surprised, nodded and began taking notes. "I want to leave half of my fortune to David, my dear grandson, and the other half will be divided between donations to the hospital where I worked and the rest of the family." Mr. Hamilton looked at her, puzzled. "Eleanor, are you sure? This is a big step." Eleanor smiled, understanding the lawyer's surprise. "I'm absolutely sure. I want David and Sarah to have what Thomas and I couldn't," she said, with a calmness that reflected years of acceptance. "They have the chance to live the love I never could, and I want to support that in the best way possible." Mr. Hamilton paused, respecting the moment, then continued to jot down Eleanor's instructions. "I'll arrange everything immediately," he assured her. After the lawyer left, Eleanor continued her routine, without mentioning the change to her will to anyone. She knew that this decision might cause surprise or even controversy, but she was confident it was the right thing to do. Eleanor wanted her legacy to be more than a distant memory. She wanted it to manifest in concrete actions and positively impact the lives of those she loved. Meanwhile, David and Sarah continued building their life together, often visiting Eleanor and sharing their joys and challenges. They always found her with a welcoming smile and words of wisdom. During one of these visits, while having tea in the garden, Eleanor looked at them with deep affection. "You have something very special," she said with a dreamy look. Sarah and David exchanged a smile, feeling the weight of responsibility and the implicit blessing in Eleanor's words. The news of Eleanor's decision would only be revealed after her death, but at that moment, she enjoyed every moment with her family, knowing she was doing what she believed was right. In a conversation with Sarah, she confided her thoughts on love and legacy. "Love is what keeps us alive, even after we are gone. You are proof that true love can transcend time and circumstances," she said with a serene smile. Sarah nodded, moved by Eleanor's wisdom. In the following days, Eleanor began organizing her affairs, leaving everything in order for when her time came. She felt an inner peace she hadn't experienced in a long time, knowing she was doing the right thing for those she loved. "Love is what makes us human," she reflected with Sarah during one of her visits. "And I see so much love between you and David. You are my legacy, as much as any material thing I might leave." With the decision made and everything arranged, Eleanor allowed herself to enjoy the final moments of her life with tranquility and gratitude. She knew that her story, though marked by losses and regrets, had a happy ending through the love of Sarah and David. As she looked to the future, she felt at peace, knowing she was leaving behind a legacy of love and hope for future generations. After months of preparation and with Eleanor's warm encouragement, Sarah and David finally got married in an intimate and emotional ceremony. The wedding was held in a beautiful garden, surrounded by close friends and family, including Eleanor, who watched the union with tears of joy in her eyes. The couple exchanged heartfelt vows, promising to love and support each other, honoring the legacy of their grandparents' love. The ceremony was a moment of celebration and hope, marking the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. A week after the wedding, Eleanor passed away. The family gathered for the funeral, a simple and emotional event. During the ceremony, David gave a heartfelt speech about his grandmother's love and resilience. Eleanor was a woman with a great heart, who loved deeply and lived her life with grace. "She left us a legacy of love, and it is our responsibility to honor it," he said, his voice choked with emotion. Sarah stood beside him, holding his hand, offering support. After the funeral, the family lawyer, Mr. Hamilton, announced that there was a letter left by Eleanor to be read after her death. The room fell silent as he opened the envelope, revealing Eleanor's familiar handwriting. In a grave voice, he began reading the elderly woman's final message. "Dear ones, if you are hearing this letter, it means that my journey on this earth has come to an end. I regret nothing, for I lived and loved as best as I could." Eleanor continued the letter, expressing her wish for Sarah and David to find happiness together. "Sarah, David, you are the continuation of a love story that began many years ago but never had the chance to flourish. You have the opportunity to live the love that Thomas and I never could. Please don't waste it. Live fully, love intensely, and never let fear or pride come between you." Eleanor's final letter also brought a surprising revelation. She confessed that, at first, she was pressured by her family not to correspond with Thomas, but she never stopped loving him. "The returned letters were an attempt to protect me from an uncertain fate, but my heart always belonged to him. I never stopped thinking about Thomas, even after so many years, and seeing the love between you two. I feel that, in a way, our love has found a new path to exist." David and Sarah, moved, exchanged a look full of understanding and love. They knew that Eleanor's words were a blessing and a directive to make the most of the opportunity they had. The silence that followed the reading of the letter was filled with respect and reverence for the legacy Eleanor had left behind. She was gone, but her presence and words would continue to guide those who remained. Mr. Hamilton concluded the reading with one last request from Eleanor: that everyone gather to celebrate life and love, not just mourn. I don't want tears of sadness, but laughter of joy as you remember the good times. Life is too short to waste on regrets. I also want to say that I left 50% of my inheritance to David. The remaining 50% should be divided, with 25% going to the hospital where I worked in my youth and 25% to the rest of the family, she wrote. After the reading, the room was silent for a moment before the family began to discuss the letter. There were both laughter and tears, but above all, there was a sense of justice. Sarah and David felt closer than ever, as if Eleanor had left them one last gift: the confirmation that love prevailed. Eleanor's death was a moment of reflection for everyone, but also a starting point for new hopes and dreams. Inspired by their grandparents' courage and love, Sarah and David were determined to live their lives to the fullest, unafraid to love or take risks. With Eleanor's passing and the revelation of her final letter, Sarah and David found themselves reflecting deeply on the impact of their family histories. Eleanor's final words echoed in their minds, reminding them of the preciousness of time and the power of love. They realized that their lives were intertwined not merely by chance, but by a destiny that spanned generations. This awareness brought a new perspective on what it meant to carry on the legacy of their grandparents' love. As they walked hand in hand through the park where they had shared so many moments together, Sarah and David talked about the future. I always thought love was something that just happened, but now I see that it is cultivated and cared for, just like our stories, Sarah said, looking towards the horizon. David nodded, squeezing her hand. Our grandparents showed us that true love is resilient. Even though they didn't have the chance to be together, their love found a way to survive through us. The story of Thomas and Eleanor was a lesson in how love can transcend the barriers of time and circumstance. Sarah and David felt honored to be part of this narrative and decided to preserve and share it with the world. They published a detailed article that not only narrated the interrupted love of their grandparents, but also celebrated the love they had found in each other. The article was well received, touching the hearts of many readers and inspiring others to cherish the special moments and people in their lives. Reflecting on the legacy of love left by Thomas and Eleanor, Sarah and David committed themselves to live their lives with the same spirit of courage and authenticity. They knew that true love requires vulnerability and sincerity, and they were determined to face the challenges that would come together. If our grandparents taught us anything, it's that we should live fully and love without reservations, David said with a fond smile. And I couldn't be happier to do that with you, Sarah responded, her eyes shining with emotion. Over time, Sarah and David built a life together, filled with adventures and challenges. They traveled, explored the world, and started a family, always remembering the lessons of love and resilience they had inherited. Thomas and Eleanor's letters were preserved as a family treasure, a constant reminder that true love is eternal. They taught their children about the importance of loving deeply and living with integrity, keeping the flame of their grandparents' legacy alive. In quiet moments, Sarah and David still reflected on the depth of the love that had united their families. They knew that their lives were connected in a way that went beyond what anyone could imagine. Our love is the gift our grandparents gave us, and it's our responsibility to protect and nurture it, Sarah said one starry night as they gazed at the sky together. And I couldn't be more grateful to share it with you, David replied, embracing her tenderly. The story of Thomas and Eleanor, and the love that transcended time and circumstances, became an inspiration for all who knew it. Sarah and David continued to share the story, reminding others that love is the most powerful force in the universe. Love never dies, David would often say, paraphrasing Eleanor's words. It lives in every action, in every gesture of kindness, and in every heart it touches. And so, the story of a love that began in times of war and overcame life's challenges became a beacon for future generations. Sarah and David, united by their grandparents' legacy, lived their lives fully, honoring the memory of Thomas and Eleanor and creating their own legacy of love, hope, and courage.